Welcome back to Afro Chess. I'm Zola, your host, as we unravel the beauty of African chess. Today we'll be turning back the clock and looking at a game from December 2024 with the white pieces, 19-year-old challenger Robert Oluka versus the defending national champion Joseph Methu. Whoever wins this game walks away with the and the esteemed title of Kenya National Chess Champion. We kick off with the Sicilian defense and Black Ops for the hyper accelerated dragon. It's gonna be a crazy one when you see that on the board. C3 building up a big center. Pawn to d5. Now you can't technically take the d pawn, but it's inadvisable as black very quickly brings out their queen and has pressure on your d pawn. That's why we see at the advantage. Blunts the bishop. Knight to c6, all natural development. Knight bd2, e6, getting ready to develop the knight through e7. Castles. Knight does develop through there. H3. Now this move forces the bishop to make a choice, to retreat or to take. Retreating, not exactly good as the bishop can be bounced around with moves like g4, maybe get shredded off on e4 in a rather suboptimal way. You can see the trade, and now black has a slight advantage here, where he can very quickly play something like queen b6 and target the center, since white didn't take with the knight. Get castles fine. Queen b6 forcing the trade as the queen hit the bishop and the center. You see the trade and bishop e3 keeping everything intact. Knight to a5 aims to maybe ruin white's pawn structure and win a pawn. You get knight to c5, and a greedy player like me would be calculating if I can snag this pawn and hold on for dear life. That's why I'm seated here, not fighting for the car. Now this simple move gets into a really ugly sequence. First starts with knight to d7, rook moves, then knight to f6. You can't technically trade for this knight, but it's really bad as get a hook on f6, the queen will go to h4, then f4, then h6, and you probably get mated. So you'd get king h8 and the subtle queen to f4. Black's position is really unpleasant here. Say, for example, you continue on with natural moves like knight to c4. Well, you'd get hit with not rook to b1 first, queen to h4, just threatening a mate in one, forcing you to push the h pawn, and now rook to b1, tempting you to take another pawn. Let's say now you snap back to your senses. The queen c2, maybe trying to bring in a defender this way or come out this way. Well, now the rook smashes into b7, doing a lot of trouble here. f7's hit, the g4 ideas to strip open your king. It's a really unpleasant position. The defending national champion does not allow all that. It's the calm retreat. b4 forces the counter threat. b6, otherwise you lose the b pawn for nothing. Knight sticks into c4. Simplest move is to take the bishop here. We see f5. Well, that is a bold move. Maybe en passant is helpful for white, for black, I mean, as very quickly gets his queen out and has a full open file for himself. Maybe he'll push e5 and get a passer in the center. So we see the calm queen to g3. Maybe black has ideas of f4, f3 to weaken the white king here. We see a simple trade on e3. Rook to c8 taking the open file. Rook ac1 fighting back. Queen d7 connects the rooks. Rook to c4. Whoa, a trade, really? No, that is bold, as that pass pawn could be a problem, but white claims he can't blockade it and create enough counterplay in the process. Rook e8 defending, knight to e2, maybe blockading on c3 is an idea one day. Queen a4 invades. We get queen to d2 defending. Bishop to f8 attacks the b pawn. Best move was b5 here, just anchor in that c pawn. We get b5 from white. Bishop tickles the queen. Rook c8 preparing to push the passer. Bishop retreats, maybe looking for a reroute. Rook to b2, holding on to everything. Queen invades the back rank. Bishop h6, maybe one little support that monster all the way to c8, c1. Queen to e3. I don't think the idea is taking the a7 pawn. I think this probably gets you dead lost, as this pawn you'd be distracted and this pawn might sneak through. c3. Oh, it's getting kind of tense here. The pawn's actually moving. If white falls asleep here, he's gonna wake up with black having a second queen on the board. What do you actually do here? You can't blockade with the rook. It's a free rook. But you have to stop this pawn. Well, you leave everything as it is and play queen to e7. Counterplay. Now the idea of this move is if you take my rook, well, take your pawn here. Say you move to g7, give you another check. You can move back down, and now I take your rook with check, and it's a draw as the bishop to f8. I'll give you another check, move to g7, and it's just a perpetual. For example, you give a check over here, there's nothing here. That gets you mated. You have to stay in. It's still very tricky. And white will just keep on giving you checks for the rest of the game. Queen to e7 is a nice little touch. In the game, black wanted to keep on playing and not just settle for a draw. Get rook to f8, giving up the e-pawn and going and claiming that he still has his pawn and will continue playing for an advantage. Queen to e8. You couldn't take the rook as white would take your queen and defend b1. The pawn drops. White's up 2 pawns now. Any endgame is going to be dicey here for black. Here there's only one move to hold. As you are down 2 pawns, you have to be precise here. Rook c8 is not the move evil by pooping its pants. The move was bishop to f4. This goes into a very forcing sequence involving g3 and bishop d2 intercepting the vision of the rook and also attacking the knight. Here white has to find knight d1, a beautiful retreating move defending f2. Black would play f4, trying to rip open the white king once more. Say for example white takes, king would sidestep to g2, queen e4 check, a block, and a pawn falls. Black will hold this game due to the weakened white king. That's not easy to see. Rook c8 is far more natural move, trying to take the open file. F-pawn does drop, but any endgame here is lost. Black has to keep queens on the board and try to attack the white king. That's why white is desperately trying to get a queen trade and just go into that winning endgame. Queen to h4, staying active, looking for possible attacks. Queen to a1, you take my bishop, I take your rook. And actually the engine suggests taking the bishop and going for knight f4 and knight g6, attacking ideas. Crazy stuff. We get the more natural queen to f6. Queen attacks the rook, rook moves over. Queen to d1, tickling the white position. Queen c4, it's doing a great job converting this. Knight g1 is a nice touch to the position, defending f3. Now, the reason black fought the pawn is to open lines. When you're worse, you have to complicate. Now the lines to the, not like that, to the white king possibly. Queen drops back, attacking black queen, which swings over, no queen trades. The pawn starts rolling. Black has gotta be fast here. It's getting dicey. Bishop drops back. Rook c6 is a nice move, attacking the bishop, sticking the rook into an outpost where it will support the advancement of the pawns. Queen b4 defense, and knight g5. Gonna anchor that thing into f7. We see the anchoring. Now the pawns just roll, baby. It's looking kind of bleak for the black position, but a national champion does not go down without a fight. He is dead lost. But this is human chess. h5. The counter-attack begins. There are h4 ideas, and this bishop might come in handy one day on that diagonal. King sidesteps to d2. Both of them are below 5 minutes over here, so it's anyone's game despite the position. If you see a trade on h4, it's a dead draw. Oh my god, from +4 to a dead draw if black plays rook to e8 here, and you can't push this pawn because of, you guessed it, that monster on b8. No, black's gonna win this pawn and probably win the next one, and position fizzles out into a draw due to perpetuals. You get queen d4, white's back in business. Rook to c4, attacking the queen and defending the h pawn. Bishop takes, king slides over. Oh my god, I can't speak English. Rook to e4, a4 advancing the queenside pawns, and knight to e5. The idea of this move is possibly to prevent the infiltration of the rook, not to c4. c4 is a blunder, to c3, and also maybe trade off for this blockade. The rook invades before it's prevented. White gets rid of the bishop. Now the position is becoming easier for white to convert, as it's harder to attack his king. And white takes full control of the c file, losing the e pawn, but he has a very concrete conversion idea here. He's gonna invade the black king. If the king steps over, there are all sorts of mates as the queen gets in combination with the rook. So black here had to block with the queen. And a nice final touch, rook to c7, chop off the queens, take the a pawn. White has way too many pawns. Even though that was good. a5, a breakthrough. The b pawn's gonna run after the a pawn's taken. This move forces resignation, and that is how 19-year-old Robert became the 2024 Kenya National Chess Championship chess champion. What a game. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'll be covering the 2025 Kenya National Chess Championship running from 26th December. All the games right here. See you then. Thank you for watching.